The top stories tonight in Y News. The faction of Partido Demokratiko Pilipino Lakas ng Bayan or PDP-Laban, headed by President Rodrigo Duterte, endorses presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., but Malacanang said it wasn't really clear if the president would personally endorse Marcos. President Duterte asked Congress not to move the unused 4.99 billion funds under the Bayanihan to Recover as one act for Bayanihan 2, as it may come in handy should there be another COVID-19 surge in the Philippines. The London-based satellite company OneWeb will resume launches of its spacecraft using rockets operated by its American competitor, SpaceX. Good evening, Philippines and the world, and today is Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. First in the news, President Rodrigo Duterte's pick for the next president remains unclear despite his party PDP-Laban's decision to endorse the candidacy of former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Nel Maribohok will tell us why.
Acting presidential spokesperson Martin Andanar said the ruling party's PDP-Laban's endorsement of Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. is a collegial decision of the party, but it does not mean that it is the personal decision of President Rodrigo Duterte.
Tayo na lang po natin si Pangulong Duterte kung ano ang kanyang personal na desisyon, at again, yung desisyon na yun ng PDP-Laban ay base sa kanilang napag-usapan sa partido.
The Duterte-led PDP-Laban wing, which is headed by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, has officially endorsed the presidential candidacy of Marcos Jr.
Yun po, nagsama-sama kami to make the formal announcement today that we are endorsing the candidacy of Bongbong Marcos for president. Ito po ay hindi desisyon ng isang tao, but ito po ay desisyon ng partido where we went through the process based on our constitutions and bylaws.
The Duterte party had earlier adopted the president's daughter, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio, as its vice presidential bet. In an ambush interview in Cavite, Marcos Jr. expressed his gratitude to what he described as the most awaited and hopeful news. He thanked the members of the PDP-Laban for the endorsement, and BBM sees this as the consolidation of the forces of unity. The faction's move, however, slammed by the other wing of PDP-Laban led by Senator Coco Pimentel. According to him, this latest action from the group of Secretary Cusi have manifested that they are total strangers to PDP-Laban. He said that PDP-Laban was established to oppose Marcos' dictatorship. Nel Maribohok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Aksyon Demokratiko pushes the government to collect the over 200 billion peso estate tax dues of the Marcoses. The party challenges Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez to ask presidential candidate Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. for their payment. Asher Cadapan Jr. details why.
Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez has been a long-time member of Partido Demokratiko Pilipino Lakas ng Bayan. Now that PDP-Laban endorses presidential candidate Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., Aksyon Demokratiko sees this as an advantage for the government to pursue its collection of estate tax dues of the Marcoses.
Siguro naman dapat ang Department of Finance utusan na talaga ang BIR, no, na singilin ang 203 billion na ito upang maitulong na ayuda sa mga nawalan ng trabaho at sa transport sectors na naghihirap dahil dito sa krisis na ating hinaharap.
Lito Banayo, campaign manager of Mayor Isko Moreno Domagoso, further says that it is high time that concerned government agencies should demand for the payment from the Marcos family. This is while the country seeks funds to aid sectors severely affected by the crisis brought about by the pandemic and the oil price hike.
Siguro naman dapat ang Department of Finance utusan na talaga ang BIR, no, na singilin ang 203 billion na ito upang maitulong na ayuda sa mga nawalan ng trabaho at sa transport sectors na naghihirap dahil dito sa krisis na ating hinaharap.
Banay added that President Rodrigo Duterte himself should include in his legacy the accomplishment of collecting the tax dues of the Marcoses before he steps down from post. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, conducted today an end-to-end demonstration of the 2022 Automated Election System, or AES. The poll body also assures that there are measures in place in case of unforeseen problems during the elections. Dante Amento has the story.
More than a month before the May 9, 2022 elections, the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, has conducted another measure for transparency through an end-to-end demonstration of the Automated Election System, or AES. The poll body showed the entire process from the casting of votes to the canvassing of the election returns. Some political parties, citizens' arms, local source code reviewers, and media personnel were present in the event.
This time it is open to the public. So ginawa po natin ito because this is very important because without transparency, there are so many doubts. There are so many mistrusts as to how we conduct the elections.
Part of the process is the printing of zero initialization report to show there are no pre-programmed election results in the VCM.
Napaka-importante po, yung mga machines magkakaroon ng initialization report ng zero. At the same time, yung mismong machine na gagamitin sa bawat presinto ay itetest at may original na balota na gagamitin po yun.
Other participants intentionally overvote. Ballots were shaded incorrect. The QR code itself was shaded instead of the circle before the candidate's name, then the ballots were fed into the VCM. As a result, some ballots were rejected by the machines. Commissioner George Erwin Garcia stressed this is important in order to determine whether the machines are indeed working properly.
Yung mismong code sa taas, medyo sulatan nyo. Tingnan natin kung yan mismo ay makakapasok sa machine, magiging valid na balota ba yan, at paano ititreat ng makina yung mismong bawat boto na sinabi natin.
Meanwhile, the COMELEC acknowledged that there may be unforeseen problems on the day of the elections, particularly in the VCMs. This is because more VCMs will be used. But the Commission assures that they have prepared a contingency plan. In case a problem will occur with the VCM, the COMELEC has trained its personnel to fix it on-site. There are also backup VCMs ready to be deployed.
In the event there are issues, technical issues, we also have our DESO technical support staff. They are trained on how to troubleshoot the system, our VCM.
For the transmission of election returns in the remote areas, Broadband Global Area Network, or BGANs, will be used as an alternative. Telco towers will also be closely monitored by the authorities, particularly in Mindanao, against some lawless groups.
Sinisecure ng AFP-PNP and other law enforcement agencies ang mga telco towers natin. Not only that, including NGCP tower lines natin, especially sa Mindanao.
Meanwhile, the final testing and sealing of the vote counting machines would be on May 2 to 7, 2022, or 2 days before the elections. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Department of Interior and Local Government, or DILG, reiterated its call for candidates to strictly observe campaign health protocols. This as the campaign period for local candidates will begin on Friday. Meanwhile, local government units were encouraged to continue the vaccination efforts during the campaigning. Janice Inhente reports.
The Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, reminded local candidates to not be complacent despite the easing of in-person campaign rules by the Commission on Elections. Last week, the COMELEC scrapped the rule on obtaining permits from its campaign committee for the holding of rallies in areas under alert levels 1 and 2. Campaign activities have also been allowed at 100% capacity and 70% capacity for alert level 1 and 2 areas respectively. However, handshakes, hugging, kissing, and taking selfies remain prohibited under the relaxed campaign rules.
Well, sa outdoor po, Yusek Rocky, whether vaccinated ka or unvaccinated, pwede naman ho makilahok yung ating mga kababayan sa pangangampanya. No? Kailangan lang masundan yung mga nire-require na space, social distancing as much as possible. Pero sa indoor, meron ho tayong limitasyon. Again, inuulit natin kung indoor campaign po ito na maraming magsasalita sa loob ng enclosed area, kailangan ho yung fully vaccinated lamang po ang pwedeng makapasok. Maski ho sa alert level 1.
Meanwhile, the government is worried that the COVID-19 vaccination rate in the country may decrease when local officials are busy campaigning. The DILG again reminds the LGUs, especially the mayors, that they should still continue the COVID-19 vaccination in their area and should not ignore the possible entry of the new COVID-19 variant.
Pagpatuloy pa sana natin ang pagbabakuna despite the fact na nagsisimula na po ang kampanyahan sa lokal na eleksyon. No? So sabay-sabay na po by starting March 25, national and local campaign. Pero sana wag pabayaan pagbabakuna. May mga lugar pa rin tayo sa Pilipinas na wala pang 70% ang total target population ang nabakunahan.
Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
In other news, several areas in regions 12 and 13 are now identified as election hotspots less than 2 months away from the 2022 elections. Leah Ilagan reports.
2 provinces in Region 12 or Soxargen are included in the election hotspots, while 7 areas in Region 13 or Caraga are under the red hotspot and are being monitored by the Regional Special Operations Task Group or RSOG.
Continuous yung aming pong assessment. Pagdating ng April 4, makikita namin ngayon yung latest kasi i-meet namin sila, all the regional offices, tapos action taken na. Kasi dapat yung mga nakita nila na red areas or red category red sa hotspot, dapat may specific actions ang probinsya o regional office to address yung areas na to.
The red category is the highest risk for violence, especially where there are election-related killings or with the presence of armed groups including the New People's Army or NPA rebels.
Ang amin pong titingnan ay nasa BAR at saka Region 12. We, as I said, si Chief of Staff tsaka ako plus the new COMELEC chair, we'd like to just on the schedule kung kailan kami makakapunta sa ground sa areas na to para to take the necessary action. Pero galing na rin po ako ng BAR and 12, kinausap ko na rin sila.
The PNP conducts regular dialogues with various groups to attain peaceful elections.
May initial steps na sila na to address or to talk, to dialogue with the groups that na merong identified na may mga armadong grupo sila na they committed that they will not be using it.
Aside from Region 12, 13 and BAR, the PNP also monitors SAMAR in Region 8. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
48 days before the May 9 elections, the Robredo-Pangilinan tandem goes to Central Luzon for their campaign trail. There, the two candidates highlight the importance of electric cooperatives in the country. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
Presidential candidate and Vice President Leni Robredo and running mate Senator Francis Pangilinan toured Nueva Ecija today as part of their official campaign trail. Pink-clad Novo Ecijanos welcomed the Robredo ticket with high spirits in their first visit in San Jose City. As they addressed their supporters, Robredo and Pangilinan underscored the need to support the country's farmers and the agriculture sector. The Leni-Kiko tandem also visited the Talavera town, where they were welcomed by members of the Philippine Rural Electric Cooperatives Association Incorporated, or PhilReca. There, the two emphasized the importance of electric cooperatives and the need to address the problems of the power industry.
Ang sa akin, tingnan natin yung datos. Yung mga may problemang electric cooperatives, instead na i-dissolve sila, kailangan tulungan. Napakahalaga ng electric cooperatives dahil pagmamay-ari ito ng mga consumers.
Kinakailangan natin isulong kung paano mapapababa pa ang presyo ng kuryente, hindi po ba? At yan din, kasama ng PhilReca, ipaglalaban natin yan.
The Robredo ticket also attended the Nueva Ecija People's Rally in Cabanatuan, where thousands of Novo Ecijanos showed their support. In the 2016 vice presidential race, Robredo lost to Bongbong Marcos and Nueva Ecija by over 325,000 votes. But for the ticket supporters in the province, they will deliver Robredo's victory. The Leni-Kiko team will be touring the neighboring province of Tarlac tomorrow. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For those watching our live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. President Rodrigo Duterte says the unutilized funds under Bayanihan 2 can be used for another COVID-19 resurgence in the country. Meanwhile, the government is still looking for ways to spend the funds, the 500 peso additional cash aid for poor families. Rosa Licos will tell us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte appealed to Congress not to move the unutilized funds under the Bayanihan 2 or Bayanihan to Recover as one act. He pointed out the funds may be used when the Philippines experiences another COVID-19 surge due to new virus variant. However, the palace is not aware how much is the total amount of the unutilized pandemic funds which has been returned to the Bureau of Treasury.
Sabi ko nga yung bayanihan, nagtatanong na hindi pa naubos, sinauli na sa treasury. Pero ganito yan eh. Sana wag na lang galawin ng Congress. If they want to legislate it, so be it. But wag galawin yan kasi that is in preparation for another surge of another variant.
But according to a report of the Commission on Audit or COA on March 2, a total amount of 4.99 billion pesos of the released budget under Bayanihan 2 remained unutilized as of end of Bayanihan 2. This fund is intended to assist the micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs. Some lawmakers are already seeking a House probe into this issue. Meanwhile, the palace said the government is still determining where to get the funds for the additional 500 pesos monthly cash aid for poor families. This after President Duterte ordered to increase the financial assistance from 200 to 500 pesos.
Yan po ang pinag-aaralan ngayon ng palasyo, kaya nga po kinausap ni Pangulong Duterte si Finance Secretary Dominguez para sabihan siya na ito ang gustong halaga ni Pangulo, 500 pesos. At yan naman ay pinag-aaralan ngayon ng Department of Finance. But by hook or by crook, kailangan po talagang mabigyan ng 500 pesos ang bawat beneficiary.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development still awaiting the formal letter from Department of Finance regarding the distribution of cash aid as well as the budget from the Department of Budget and Management. Currently, they are crafting the guidelines to ensure smooth and fast distribution of the financial assistance amid consecutive oil price hikes. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Labor groups continue to conduct protest actions against the rising fuel prices. But President Rodrigo Duterte advises the affected sectors to avoid resentments. Asher Cadapan Jr. reports why.
The oil price increases not only in the country but also in other nations across the globe. This is due to the crisis between Ukraine and Russia, one of the major producers of oil in the world. President Rodrigo Duterte explains this as the economy and people in all countries are affected by the current oil situation.
Huwag kayong mga driver, pati everyone, huwag kayong maghinakit na tumataas ang presyo. Lahat ng sa mundo tinatamaan ngayon.
The chief executive further explains that there is also no way that the country will be able to stock enough oil supply as the country is incapable of doing such. More so, protest actions will not pull down the prices of oil.
Baski sa protesta ninyo, yan talaga ang presyo ng langis.
Some labor groups, however, conducted protest march in front of the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board. They continue to call for the suspension of fuel excise tax to help cushion the impact of oil price hike. The groups also demand to revise or completely demolish the oil deregulation law.
Ito ay malinaw na panliling lang sa atin ng oil company sapagkat yung ginagamit natin ngayon na crudo ay nabili po natin yan na mas mababa pa by Nobyembre at umaabot lamang ng 85 per barrel yung produktong petrolyo. Taminado yung ilang mga gusalinahan na inuubos talaga lang nila yung kanilang stocks.
Asher Cadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, business establishments may soon be required to secure a safety seal certification from the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI. JP Nunez will tell us why live. Meanwhile, the Department of Health has reached 115% from its target on the recent national vaccination days, while 134% of its target population for the second doses. The vaccine cluster administered more than 140 million jabs in total. While this is good news, we continue to urge the public to encourage friends and family to get vaccinated and boosted to stay protected against COVID-19. As of March 21st, 2022, more than 65.2 million Filipinos are fully vaccinated. More than 70.4 million have been inoculated with at least one dose, and almost 11.6 million individuals are already boosted. The DOH assures even after the National Vaccination Day 4, the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines will continue for our protection.
8 mga rehiyon din ang nakalampas sa kanilang mga target nitong huling National Vaccination Day 4. 126% para sa National Capital Region, 108% para sa CAR, 121% para sa Region 1, 119% para sa Region 2, 146% para sa Region 3, 206% para sa Region 8, 133% para sa Region 9, at 111% naman para sa Caraga. Patuloy po tayong magtiwala sa bisang hatid ng bakuna para sa kaligtasan, hindi lamang po para sa ating mga sarili, kung hindi pati na rin po para sa ating pamilya at sa ating kinabibilangang pamayanan.
Meanwhile, the DOH has submitted to the Food and Drug Administration an application for the approval of a fourth dose or second booster for some sectors like senior citizens and immunocompromised, as recommended by the vaccine expert panel. The World Health Organization is uncertain when the COVID-19 pandemic will end. But the WHO is optimistic that the global COVID-19 emergency could end this year. Aiko Miguel explains why.
The pandemic will take some time to end, but the emergency of COVID-19 could end this year.
The World Health Organization says some countries may have been experiencing a resurgence of COVID-19 cases, but there are countries with low-risk case classification. WHO technical lead for COVID-19, Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove, said there are a lot of ways to eventually cut COVID-19 transmission and prevent the disease to progress.
What we mean by that is really taking the death and devastation out of COVID. And we can do that now with vaccines, with early diagnosis, with better clinical care. And we have a number of therapeutics, particularly for severe disease, but we have a number of antivirals that are recommended for earlier clinical care so that people can get the care early so that they don't progress to severe disease.
WHO has yet to announce the next steps when the global COVID-19 emergency finally ends. WHO officials also emphasize COVID-19 will remain like other infectious and deadly diseases. This is why being a responsible and compliant citizen amid the pandemic is important.
For the people that are listening to this may, be discouraging, but I think what we want people to hear when they hear us speak is a sense of hope and a sense of that this will end. That is something we can say for sure. The problem is we can't say exactly when. But this pandemic will end with our actions. And so all of us have a role to play. All of us have a role to play, no matter where you are, no matter what kind of job you have, no matter what your age, to get us closer to the end. And so what we want to see is everybody really working hard, living their lives, but being careful so that we can get closer to the end of this emergency as well as ending the pandemic.
WHO Regional Office for Western Pacific Dr. Babatunde Olubukure meanwhile emphasized the importance of COVID-19 vaccination with the emergence of COVID-19 variants.
While the virus is circulating anywhere in the world, we can still have an outbreak. So even if we bring it under control in this region, as long as it's circulating in Europe, America, or somewhere else, it can be introduced. Or it may be a pocket, as Maria has said, of unvaccinated people within your own country. And if you have that pocket of unvaccinated people, they can seed outbreaks in other parts of the country. And that may lead to a surge, which is why we really need to have very good systems in place to be able to detect early, respond early, and contain that particular outbreak.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Business establishments may soon be required to secure a safety seal certification from the Department of Trade and Industry. JP Nunez will tell us why live. Yes, JP, good evening. Go ahead.
Yes, William, good evening. To secure business establishments' compliance with the public health standards, the Department of the Interior and local government may soon require the safety seal certification. DILG Secretary Eduardo Año said that the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases is now discussing the guidelines for its implementation. The DILG seeks to implement the safety seal certification on the second quarter this year.
So kapag ka nag-inspect yung ating Bureau of Fire Protection, kasama yung LGU, yung taga mga building officials, yan, isasama na natin yan doon. Para mawala man later on yung tinatawag natin mga alert system, nandiyan na yan, naka-institutionalized. This year, 2022, gagawin na natin yan.
DILG and the Department of Trade and Industry believes business establishments with safety seal may encourage more customers. This will make customers more comfortable and assured that establishments have additional preventive measures against COVID-19. This may also lead to the reopening of more business, which is necessary for the recovery of the economy. As of now, there are more than 75,000 business establishments in the country which pass the safety seal standards. The IATF will still discuss if they will require business employees to get booster dose before passing the safety seal certification.
Sa ngayon, hindi pa natin napapag-usapan yung requirement ng being boosted. No? Yung ating primary series muna. Very important muna talaga yung primary series. Kung ipapasok natin yung requirement yung mga na booster, bababa yung ating kliyente. No? So dapat bigyan natin ng pagkakataong umangat yung economy natin.
Meanwhile, the National Task Force Against COVID-19 gave recognition to LGUs which are best performing to issue safety seals. Quezon City hailed on top with more than 5,000 seals issued. Makati City on the second place with more than 3,500 issued safety seals, and Pasay City on third for more than 2,000 safety seals issued. Meanwhile, Manila City was recognized as top-performing city to receive safety seals from the DILG. That is our latest live. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you very much. JP Nunez reporting live from Quezon City.
For the news abroad, Russian forces strike a shopping center in Ukraine's capital city Kyiv and Black Sea port city Odessa as their invasion continues. Queenie Rivera details why live. Good evening, Queenie.
Good evening, Elsie. Claiming that the Ukrainian forces store rockets and reload launchers in a shopping center in a densely populated district in Kyiv. Russian forces left a smoking ruin to the said infrastructure, killing 8 people. This claim of the Russians cannot be verified. Nevertheless, the shelling and attacks have also caused destruction of nearby buildings. Moreover, according to the mayor of Odessa, a Black Sea port city, Russia also conducted the first attack since the invasion, striking residential buildings on Monday. The city council reported no casualties, but the attacks caused a fire. Now on its 4th week of assault to Ukraine, Russia has yet to seize a major Ukrainian city. Diplomacy talks also have not yet made a significant progress. Meanwhile, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky praised protesters for their courage to confront Russian soldiers who fired shots and used stun grenades to break up the demonstration in the city of Kherson, the first urban center to fall into the Russian forces. Elsie?
Queenie, seeing that the assault to Ukraine still continues, are there any hindrances on the peace talks between the two countries?
Yes, Elsie. Ukraine is willing to negotiate but will not surrender to Russia's demand, such as recognizing Crimea as part of Russia, whereas Russia has accused Ukraine of stalling the talks by making proposals unacceptable for them. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Queenie Rivera, for that live report. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken declared the confirmed accounts of mass atrocities on Rohingya population as genocide. Annie Mancilia tells us why live. Good evening, Annie.
Good evening, Elsie. U.S. Secretary Blinken made the remark at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in a bid to generate international pressure and lay the groundwork for potential legal action against Myanmar's army. Blinken declared that the abuse made by Myanmar's military was widespread and systematic, and there was a clear intent behind these mass atrocities. Blinken's determination of Rohingya's repression as genocide could lead other nations to increase pressure on Burma, which is already facing accusations of genocide at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. This is the 8th time the United States have concluded a genocide has occurred since the Holocaust. Meanwhile, human rights groups welcomed the determination and called for concrete action, including the Rohingya Youth Association, who called the attention of U.S. government via Twitter, pleading to establish a tribunal to bring justice to victims and survivors of Myanmar's military abuse, as well as for repatriation. Elsie?
Thank you, Annie Mancilia, reporting live from Singapore. Pfizer announced on Monday that it recalled some lots of blood pressure drug Accuredic and 2 authorized cheaper versions of the drug used due to the presence of elevated levels of nitrosamine. Nitrosamine are common in water and foods, including cured and grilled meats, dairy products, and vegetables. Exposure to the impurities above acceptable levels over long periods of time could increase the risk of cancer. Although Pfizer has not received the end reports of adverse events related to the drug to date, they said patients currently taking the products should consult with their doctor about the alternative treatment options. British satellite company OneWeb contracts spacecrafts from its American counterpart SpaceX amidst the Russian-Ukraine war. Marvin Delphine will tell us why live. Yes, Marvi?
OneWeb resorted to borrowing rockets operated by SpaceX after OneWeb's Russian-made vehicles were placed under sanctions and consequentially banned from the international market. The two companies are considered competitors in a feat to build constellations in space for delivery of advanced broadband internet connections globally. Current events between Russia and Ukraine, however, resulted in the two working together. OneWeb CEO Neil Masterson, in a statement, is grateful for the support shown by SpaceX as the company is given another opportunity to launch its satellites. Masterson aims to launch its first batch of aircrafts before the end of the year, with a goal to complete a full fleet of satellites thereafter. Elsie, at the moment, no disclosure has been made about the terms of agreement between the two companies. OneWeb manages to produce 1 to 2 satellites per day at its Florida-based factory, with early partners already initiating service. Elsie?
Marvi, what are the different target sectors of OneWeb and SpaceX?
Elsie, both companies fly its satellites on low Earth orbit. The difference is that OneWeb is focused on targeting enterprise clients, while SpaceX is focused on directly servicing consumer homes. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Marvi Delphine, reporting live from Australia. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 26. It says, "Be ye angry and sin not, let not the sun go down upon your wrath." And those are the reasons behind the news of March 22nd, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold, and because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.